One of the biggest pitfalls for most students applying for MBA colleges in the US or even masters is just blindly going off of rankings to figure out if that's the right program for them. While this is decent for a first step, what you need to do after is really what makes a difference. This is why I asked Shivangi Sharma, who went to UCLA for her MBA, how she was able to shortlist that college for herself and the three-step blueprint that she took to get there. One of the most useful things she shares was the concept of resume twins, which I will let you figure out, but that was such a game changer. So without any further ado, let's jump in, and remember to subscribe for more helpful content around study abroad, as well as check out my podcast Ready Set Do, which I will link above.
My next question would be, in those 2 months, did you already know the places you wanted to apply to, or and if not, how did you go about finalizing the where after you've already landed on the I want an MBA in the US?
So people from my undergrad batch had mostly done MS and not MBA. So I personally did not know anyone who had pursued this path. So I could not rely on their expertise. But I think that would be a good first starting point, because if you have friends or maybe family or someone who's pursued this path, it becomes easier to get started. So what I did was actually a combination of multiple things. Again, I was short on time. So I used that time in various ways. Let me break it down. I think the first thing was just checking. I had an idea of what B schools in the US are. I wanted to apply to the US. I think that clarity I did have. So that narrowed down the first branch. And then after that, it was a combination of looking at the top 15 to 20 schools on the ranking list to get an idea of, okay, where do they stand? Second thing was, and I truly believe people should do this, is personalize the rankings and not take them too literally, which means that what does a school have to offer based on what your background is, what you can draw out of it, the diversity that will be present at that school, and also what you want to pursue next. So, what I mean by that is, I think
Yeah.
the first step of looking at that would be the college reports. I think each of the business school publishes a report, which is what their batch looked like, what was the percentage of international
Hmm.
students, what was the percentage of people that went into consulting or tech or role wise. It's actually a great detailed report. It gives you a good first
Wow.
insight
Yeah, it
into.
sounds like such a helpful thing to
Yeah,
look
yeah, yeah,
at.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It's like a quick first step into just understanding what it would look like. I think from 0 to 1, it's a good starting point where you get an understanding of what the batch looks like and what it would be like to be there. I think secondary also, one angle to look at it is, if you have clarity on what you want to do post MBA, you can see the number of people or the percentage of people who go into that arena. For example, if let's say for UCLA, there was a significant percentage of people going into tech, and I wanted to stay in tech as well. So my hypothesis here was that if so many people are going into tech, there must be a good amount of support within, or resources available.
Right.
So that was a hypothesis that I took down from, I think, so it was the rankings, then the college reports, to get a quick first level. I think some colleges get eliminated based on that. It's more of a hunch. I don't think there's one true right answer. It you need to feel it from within, because you're going to spend 2 years, a significant amount of money, and this is going to be your life. It's going to get added to your
No,
name.
I feel that.
So
Yeah. That totally makes sense.
yeah.
And a quick follow up on the reports that you mentioned. Do those vary a decent amount between colleges, or are they mostly homogeneous with just, fringe changes across the board?
I think the structure is homogeneous, more so. It gives an idea of what was the percentage of internationals and American students, and then I think the percentage of people that went into a specific role, or the various employers that did come in and take people. So it gives you a sense of that. I think it also gives you a sense of how many people are pursuing entrepreneurship. So by function, by industry, and the different employers that come in. So I think
Hmm.
each of these reports will give you that sense very quickly. It takes like a few minutes to just scan it very quickly. So you get a good
Okay.
first understanding of these schools. And I think the next follow up to that is definitely, once you get a shorter list of these colleges that you feel you have something that you're relating with, would be just hit up people on LinkedIn. You'll be so surprised as to how many people, strangers, like when I did this from India, I thought I'm shooting in the dark. I didn't think anyone would respond. But there were people who I just got on a call with, and I had a structure in mind as to what I would ask them. I wanted to understand their experience at the school, the different resources they used, what they loved and what they didn't love, and like essentially what could be better, I would say, instead of didn't love. But you would be surprised. There were people who sat with me for 1.5, 2 hours on call, and we became friends. Actually, some of those people are now my friends and mentors. So it was a great experience. I spoke to people, even to schools that I didn't end up applying to. I feel people are very honest with you, they really help you out. Yeah, definitely. I mean, I get these requests too, and I've been helping out some people as well. It's a beautiful just cycle of giving back that just exists. But I think if you drop 10 requests, I think at least 3 people would help you. So, and that's not a bad ratio. And I think 3 is like I'm really under
That's a
delivering
pretty
on the
good.
number.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm really under delivering. I was more fortunate than that. So I made an effort to, I think I had like 12 schools, and I just made an effort to chat with at least 2 to 3 people from each school, because again, you don't want just one person's experience. You get more of a sense of what the culture would be like in a school. Some schools have more of their principles that they really believe in. So how deeply those play a role in these situations? What are the different clubs on campus? What courses were great? What professors were great? What other factors play into this? Maybe location is a big factor, and there are things like I'm at UCLA, so maybe Los Angeles has some conferences that I could attend. Maybe, various factors that you would not understand when you're sitting in India, but when you talk to someone who's done that experience and is at campus, they'll be able to shed light on many other things. And another advice, I think, last tip on this would be, when you do reach out to people, it's good to reach out to people who would be graduating essentially second years when you're speaking with,
Okay.
because first years when you're applying are either just entering campus if you're applying at round one, or these are people who are like, I was in round two. So if I would have reached out to people in the month of, let's say, November, they would have been on campus for just 2 months. So it's good to reach out to people who are in their second year, they've done a whole 1 year of this madness, and they have more insights to give. So that was another tip that really worked for me.
A couple follow-ups there. So the first being, when you're reaching out to these people, is there a certain criteria that goes into your mind before you hit that button for send personalized invite? So like what I'm getting at is, do you check if that person is also an Indian person, or is that not something that you would take too seriously at this stage when you're still vetting out colleges? And then I was hoping you could share maybe just a rough ballpark of what that invite exactly looks like. Like, are you
Okay.
just being really honest and direct, and obviously as a person that's done their part of the research,
Mhm.
just looking for that extra information, or are you just positioning yourself as a I know nothing about this, please help me? Which approach did you take?
Okay, first thing as we begin this answer, please never take the third approach. I think the rule of reaching out to someone, especially a stranger, for help or even otherwise, is make it easy for the other person to help you, and you will be surprised how many people are ready to help you. I think the natural inclination of people is to help, but if you go and take time from someone and you're asking questions that you can just Google and kind of figure out, or things that are openly available on the website, I don't think it's good use of your time or their time, or just the whole process in general. I think the relationship could be handled a little better. So my approach on this, number one, I think multiple parts to this. I think you mentioned the Indian angle of this. I think
Hmm?
one way you can look at it is, if you know what you want to do post MBA, it's something called a, I don't know if it's a term, but let's just say resume twin. I read it somewhere.
Okay,
So
I
resume
like
twin,
that.
yeah, it was a fun term. So basically, it's somebody who has a similar background, let's say 75 to 90% match from what you used to do in the past, and are at the business school or studied at the business school that is on your list, and are doing the role that you potentially would wish to do. So if you get that kind of a match, it becomes easier to relate with this person. uh, I did speak. I think I spoke with non-Indians as well, but most of them were Indians because they knew specific. I think it becomes context, becomes like a level ground, and then becomes easier to answer those questions. Like, what did you do? Did you use any resources? Or most of the questions that I had framed were around, like, I had done my research on each school when I reached out to, let's say, someone from UCLA. I knew that there were these clubs that I was looking at, let's say the Tech Club, the South Asian Business Association, and I checked out all those pages and their websites and what was written on them. So when I spoke to them, I could actually ask them, like, okay, I had read about these courses or this professor, and what was your experience with them? What was a course you thought that you would not like but added a lot to your experience? What would be your recommendation? Like, if I want to pursue tech, like some people gave me a recommendation saying that do courses that you would never do otherwise. Like for somebody like me, doing a finance course was so helpful. I mean, you do have core courses, but beyond that, because you start thinking differently, you start thinking broader, and you start
That's
looking at
such a
things.
good point.
Yeah, you start looking at things very differently. So I think you get great insights. My questions were usually around giving a brief 2 to 3 minute introduction about myself, and followed by why I was looking at this college, what I wanted to do post MBA, and the few clubs that I'd looked at, and then just getting their advice on what was the thing that they enjoyed most in this MBA program, and what was something that if they had an opportunity, they would do differently. Because I think those insights are something that you can build upon from day one. And I think I just left it open, asking them that what other schools they had applied to. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah. I think even asking what other schools they had applied to was very helpful, because there were some schools
Oh,
that I
interesting.
was not considering.
And on the topic of resume twins, I'm assuming what that sounds like to me is you just kind of go to LinkedIn and start searching your background and then just look at people that pop up. Is that way off, or is there more that goes into how to go about finding that resume twin that you mentioned?
So, few ways of finding. Number one, let's say LinkedIn, you mentioned. I think go to a school, check the alumni tab, and you can really see people
Okay,
who've worked there, and you can choose the
gotcha.
graduation year. So, you can choose people by that, and then you can find people in the roles that you would want. Either they've interned there or they've just graduated and they did those roles. So, that becomes a
That's
quick way
crazy.
of
How easy
focusing.
that.
A lot of resources sometimes are just like ridiculously easy, and we just don't like figure it
Yeah,
out till
it's so
very late.
true.